Hey, beautiful soul. You're listening to the Rising into Mindful Motherhood podcast, your weekly dose of fertility wisdom. I'm your host, Dr. Katie Wood. I'm a barefoot mama bear, pharmacist, and integrative fertility coach. This is your go-to podcast for all things to naturally nourish your fertility, embody womb healing, and reclaim your feminine power to accelerate your path to pregnancy. My expert guests and I will be having intentional conversations to discuss the many facets of a thriving, fertile foundation, natural wellness, and how we grow and transform as women on our journey to motherhood. So let's dive in, shall we? Hello and welcome to Rising into Mindful Motherhood. In this episode, I'll be talking with Kathryn Bregman, a badass fertility coach with 2 master degrees in education and qualitative research, which she uses to design and teach her badass fertility program, which has helped women all over the world become moms, which we love. She had struggled herself for years to conceive her daughter, and everything shifted when she discovered mindset on her journey. Kathryn decided she needed to share what she had learned, so she became a certified life coach under the mentorship of Marianne Williamson and founded Badass Fertility. And in today's episode, we're going to be discussing how the mind is the most often overlooked and most essential tool to help bring home your baby. So welcome, Kathryn. I am so happy to have you on my podcast. She recently had me as a guest on hers. So just happy to dive into your journey and how mindset can really make such an impact on the fertility journey.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. It is honestly, I'm just so happy to be here talking with you. I had so much fun talking with you on my podcast, and I'm just honored to be a guest here on yours. So, yeah, let's jump in.
Beautiful. So I want to hear about this shift that happened
Mm-hmm.
for you on your journey.
Mm,
What did that look like? What did it feel like? And what was the
mm.
resulting impact for you?
Oh, I love that you started by asking about the shift because that's such a powerful key to it all. And I know that because I lived it and I have seen it happen with so many of the amazing women in my BFP program. And so going back to my story, I'll give you like the Cliff Notes version and emphasize the shift part. So I got married when I was 36
Mhm.
and already felt behind, right? Like I just had this now if I when I have clients who are in their mid to late 30s, I'm like, "Oh my God, you are so good. You have so much time. There is nothing to worry about here." But we're programmed to really fear that 35 as like this tipping point of fertility. And so I had that in my mind. And so I was already felt behind. My husband and I we get married. Let's go. Let's make this baby. And the first month that we tried to conceive using an ovulation kit, I did become pregnant. And I remember thinking these famous last words. I thought, why do people struggle to get pregnant? Use an ovulation kit. As if I like had it all figured out, and was like
Huh?
smart. Well, unfortunately, we lost that pregnancy pretty early on, about 8 weeks in. And I did not see another positive pregnancy test for 3 very long, very torturous years.
No.
And I ate those words because it did not matter how many ovulation kits I used. I used every single one on the market, every single thing I could possibly do. After about a year of trying naturally, I had been doing acupuncture, taking herbs. And then we were like, all right, we need to get a workup. I got a workup done at my clinic. My clinic was like, oh, you have a bazillion problems. You have, because at that point I was like 38 ish, around 38. And I was diagnosed with endometriosis, elevated NK cells. They said I was pre-diabetic. I had a thyroid condition. And those are just the highlights. And then there was like other issues as well. So I was devastated. I mean,
Yeah.
all I wanted was to become a mom. At that point, I felt totally out of control. I felt like it was never going to happen. My friends and family were like, don't worry, just relax. You'll be fine. It's going to happen. And I mean, people would even say things like, don't try so hard. And I'm like, hello, look at all this stuff I've just been diagnosed with. And I think that's such a difficult part of this journey. And it brings me around to that shift that we're talking about, because on the one hand, it's, yeah, look at all this stuff that I was diagnosed with. I really needed to pay attention to it. And I felt, I mean, my IVF doctor, who I adored, like really would spend a lot of time with us. Like he would sit down and talk with us for an hour when we came in. He'd answer all of our questions. He was like, you need to start like yesterday. And so I was panicked. My husband thought it was fine and we could get pregnant naturally, no problem. And I was like, you're crazy. Like, we need to do this. And really, I think that going through the IVF process it was so stressful and led me to this place where I felt really disconnected from my body even more and even more powerless. And after 2 egg retrievals, we had gotten about 3 or 4 embryos from each retrieval. We had opted for genetic testing. None of the embryos from either of the retrievals came back genetically normal. And I was really at a breaking point at that point in time, because I felt I could cry even just
Yeah.
thinking, like, how am I ever going to do this? And I had become aware of the value of mindset. I knew that I was in a place where I just couldn't even believe in my body anymore. I felt so strung out from the hormones and the whole experience. And I started working with a mindset coach, and that really changed the game for me. I had also been doing therapy. Like, I am one of those people, like, I took every approach that I could take. I was like, I will leave no stone unturned. I will make this my mission to bring home my child, because there was nothing more important to me than that. And I can say, from having worked with a therapist, it was very helpful. But I also needed somebody who was helping me look forward, really coaching me on believing in myself, on not being bound by the timeline, and starting to really listen to my body and what was going on. And the shift really happened there, because when I started to actually regain confidence in myself, when I was no longer just handing the job over to external actors, who, like doctors, professionals, people who are amazing, who have a tremendous amount to offer, but who don't know me as well as I know me, and
Mhm.
also don't care as much about me becoming pregnant as I did, because nobody cares as much as you, like maybe your partner, but that's it. So I actually decided to pause IVF. We had bought a package, we had one more egg retrieval, and I was like, I can't do this. And I took time off, even at, getting closer to 39, which took a huge amount of courage. And in that time, I started working on my body. I started doing things I'd never done before, hit exercise, which was something that, like, I love yoga, I love Pilates, I do not love cardio. And like, I was being encouraged. Like, they were like, you need to do the cardio to balance your hormones. And so I did. And when I was doing it, I think the real key, and I'll give you an example of the shift, because I don't want to ramble too much about my journey. I want to also talk about other things. But the an example of the shift that I'm talking about is, there was a moment when I was working with this trainer doing an exercise, which I would call a bit hellish. I don't know if I can say that, but like, where you had to step up and down on a bench, right? But you had to do it really fast. And it's like up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. And I think I was using weights or something. And this is just like my idea of torture. Like, I don't, historically, now I might be more into it, but at the time I was just like, this is so not me. And I remember thinking, God, I just want to give up. And instead, this new thought came into my mind, and it was, I'm going to become a mom. I'm going to become a mom. I'm going to become a mom. And I just kept saying it to myself over and over. And I believed it. I believed it fully in every fiber of my being. And it was what fueled me to continue through that exercise. At the end, the trainer looks at me and he goes, man, I don't know what happened, but you just like picked up and went off at like whatever moment in that exercise. And I did not share with him what I was thinking because I didn't really feel like I wanted to disclose, but I knew. And that to me is the power of the mind body connection. And it may seem small, but it is so significant when you can take what feels like torture and turn it into an opportunity for success, for bringing home your baby. That's when your mind is working for you and it can become the most powerful muscle in your body because it really does fuel everything else. So after I started working on mindset, about 6 months later, I got pregnant naturally. Right? Yeah. Okay. And it's not just like, oh, I started believing. It's like when you change your thoughts, your beliefs shift and your actions change too. And it's that synthesis of motion that really leads to transformation. And so I got pregnant and right before I was going to go back for my third egg retrieval, like within a couple of weeks. And my IVF doctor was like, what? Like the people in the clinic could not believe that it had happened. And that's when I just knew like this stuff is so powerful and real. And if I hadn't done it, I don't know how much longer it would have taken me to get to my daughter.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. I love a good story like that. It just makes me so excited and is just like a hella good reminder to be like, yeah, Katie, this is why you do what you do because this is just badass fertility right here, right?
Exactly. Exactly. Ugh.
So, when you were sharing about that pivotal moment with your trainer, I'm a very visual person. Literally, what came in my mind is like all of your cells just lighting up, lighting up, lighting up, all coming online. Hello, Kathryn is here. She's
Yes.
on the same frequency, the same wavelength. Okay, everybody get to work. That's literally like what popped
Mm.
in
I love
my
that. That
mind.
is
It's
such a
like
powerful
all
visual.
the lights popping on.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's true. It's true.
Mhm.
And that's something that like we know is real when we live it, but it can feel really abstract. And like when you're in the pressure of, but I just want to be a mom, it's hard to let go and start to trust that whole process, but
And
yeah,
I think there is a difference of I have to think this and
got it.
forcing it
Yes.
versus it sounds like you just decided instead of forcing it.
Hmm.
So there is a
Yes.
difference in the energy in how you're really approaching that mindset shift.
Absolutely. I always talk about that. I think I have a Badass Fertility podcast episode about that, where it's like affirmations themselves.
Hmm.
They don't, I'm not going to say like they don't work, but it's the energy underneath the affirmation. It's not that I was saying to myself, I'm going to become a mom. Because if I was saying that, but not feeling it and not believing it, it wouldn't have been as powerful.
Hmm.
Sometimes we have to say something over and over before we start to believe it. And that's
Yeah.
okay. It's you got to start going to the gym before you like going to the gym. And but you will like it if you keep going, generally speaking, right? Once you find the thing that works for you. And it's similar, I think, with the affirmations or thoughts in general. Like sometimes you have to just almost, it sounds cliche, but fake it till you make it. But it's the making it part that's where like the magic happens when you do that work and you can start to believe it a little bit more and feel it in your body. And like you said, have like your cells lining up and everything just exploding. And yes, here we are. There's fundamental shifts that occur. And I'm not a physicist or a doctor, but I know it happens.
Yeah. And I feel like there is this extra layer that since you were doing like physical exercise, you are moving your body, you are
Hmm.
actually becoming embodied in that feeling as well. So I think having that physical aspect also brings it to like the next level. So whether that's going on a walk or doing some yoga poses and just like you kept saying it over and over again in your mind and in doing that, I think that that brings another level of embodiment and kind of turning all the cells online, right?
Absolutely. I think so. And I think that that interesting thing, I love that you said that about embodiment because I totally agree that different women, depending on their own physicality, their own histories with exercise, some people need to stop doing that intense exercise and do yoga. And some people like me
Yes.
need to do a little less yoga and get a little bit more sweaty, sweaty.
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
so that's where I think it can get confusing on the
Hmm.
fertility journey because there is not a one size fits all prescription all the time. And then again, that's where that mindset piece comes in is being able to figure out for yourself, okay, this makes me uncomfortable, but it feels right. So getting comfortable with being uncomfortable is something I always say is a really important aspect because we can't grow if we stay in our comfort zone.
Hmm.
And if you're facing blocks to your baby, then the odds are there's somewhere in your life that growth can help facilitate the change that will bring your baby home.
110%. Absolutely. Yeah. So I would love to hear, hmm, I don't know, what's coming through is what are some of the biggest mindset blocks that you see with your clients? Because I know that there's always like common threads and themes that can come through. So what are some of the bigger ones that you see?
I'm so glad you asked that question because in the Badass Fertility Program, we have a support group that we get together a couple times a month. And one of the things that's come up a lot lately, so the first thing that comes to mind is age.
Hmm.
And it doesn't really matter almost what age a woman is. She could be 32, 42, 48. She's probably worried about her age. I find it so fascinating because it just that in and of itself exemplifies how subjective that fear can be. Because somebody who's 45 is looking at the 38-year-old and being like, damn, I wish I was you. And someone who's 38 is thinking, oh my God, I'm almost expired. And it's, whoa, hold on a second here. I think that what happens is I love data. I love statistics. I think it's really important. I'm a research driven person. I spent a lot of time in higher education. I know you are also a research driven person. And we also both, I think, recognize the limits of what medical research can really tell us about our own individual chances of becoming pregnant. So I always emphasize if you've been given a 1% chance of getting pregnant, the odds are what's running through your mind every day is it's a 99% chance it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. I waited too long. My eggs are too old. My AMH is too poor, whatever it is. But again, like we keep running those thoughts through our heads and then we believe them because thoughts lead to beliefs. The more you think something, the more your brain's going to just start accepting it as true. And then it constrains the actions you're willing to take. So if I had, going back to my story, just as a personal example, if I had believed those thoughts of, I haven't even had any good eggs, quote unquote, I have had no genetically normal embryos. How could I ever get pregnant? I better keep doing IVF. If you can flip the script and be like, you know what? I have a 1% chance. I have a chance. And if you can live in that place of possibility, it will flip so much of your experience of your journey, and you will find yourself doing things differently. And those differences are critical to facilitating success. Do I have enough time? Have I wasted time? How much time do I have left? And all of those, what I encourage women to do is flip the script. Flip the script. Stop looking at what you don't have and look at what you do have, which is easy to say and hard to do. But there are tools and practices, and with support, it's really possible.
Hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, just flipping the narrative and being very careful with what we accept as
Mm,
our truth. For example, the other day, a girl posted in a fertility group about her really, really low AMH and what can she do. And I just commented and said like, hey, oh, she was 29 or 26 or something, and her AMH was like very low. And I'm like, hey, listen, this is a flag that something is probably going on underneath. Like you could totally take a root cause approach and try to figure out what is going on. And then another woman commented on my comment and was basically projecting, no, there's nothing you can do about it. You probably just have POI. Like there is nothing you can do to change your
wow.
AMH or anything like that. And it's
Wow.
just, and I commented back very respectfully. I said, I think if you believe that, then that will be your reality. But
Absolutely.
on the other side of the coin, if you have the belief that there is something I can do about this situation, this is here as an opportunity for me to grow and evolve. I mean, look, I think you said you were pre-diabetic and your thyroid and all of these things. And those are things, whether you want to have a child or not, that you want to address so you can live
Absolutely.
with vitality and
Absolutely.
wellness. So I do
Absolutely.
think if you like, it sounds like that other woman had already decided because she was, I've been to
Hmm.
5 different doctors and they all, the whole spiel,
Yeah.
but that
Yeah.
was clearly her belief that
Hmm. Hmm.
there's nothing I can do. So I agree that just flipping that narrative and deciding, hey, there is a chance here and I'm able to do what I can. Right? I just had
Yes.
a podcast episode about the quality of your eggs versus the quantity, right? When you're in your
Mm.
40s, you have eggs. You don't have as
Oh,
many,
yeah. But you still have a lot.
but you have, yeah, you have a
I
lot and
mean,
you
yeah.
have total control on how you can impact the quality of those eggs.
Absolutely. And I think what you were saying, you didn't say this exactly, but it reminded me of a quote that I love, which is you get what you focus on. And that may sound like mystical or woo woo, but it's true. Like like what you focus on is what you're going to find. So if you focus on the fact that your health can be improved, your fertility can be optimized, that AMH, just to go with your example, is not a death sentence to your dream, but actually women with low AMH get pregnant. I was going
Mhm.
to say all the time, but I mean, they do. Women with low AMH get pregnant and shock their doctors all the time. So there's so much about reproduction that we don't really fully know, especially like within the Western medical paradigm. And I think that's where the work that you do is so valuable because you bring that lens of holistic awareness to the physical aspects of fertility. And I think that's critical. And I believe the mindset piece complements it because, again, if you're doing something and you're hating it or you're feeling punished by having to do it, which is how I would have felt before I worked on my mindset, then it's really like almost don't even bother. Because if you're going to wake up every day and be like, I can't believe that I can't have sugar and I can't have gluten and I'm miserable and this sucks and blah, 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 you're just going to probably create emotional inflammation in your body. And then you're going to be working against the things that you're striving for. But if you can be in a state where you're like genuinely believing, oh my God, all I have to do is let go of a couple of foods, for just using this as an example. I'm not saying everyone should be doing this, just it's just a classic kind of example. All I have to do is let go of a couple of foods. Yes, I love them. I can go back to them one day, but this is going to help me bring home my baby. Like, amazing, and probably feel better in my body too. So it is that flipping the script. And, going back to the comment that you saw in the Facebook group, it's it's difficult because we get so much contradictory messaging on this journey. And again, I think that's why the mindset piece is so critical, because we have to be resilient and we have to learn how to believe in ourselves more than we ever have possibly before. And in an area where we feel extremely vulnerable, because your ability to conceive and carry a child as a woman in our society, in our world, there's an identity factor there. And when it's not happening, it can deeply impact your sense of self, your sense of self-worth. And when that sense of self-worth is shaken, you're even more susceptible to that negative messaging because your brain is already hardwired to go to the negative. And now you're doubting yourself. And now you're going to believe that stuff more, become further paralyzed by it. And your opportunity to make your dream come true becomes even more constrained.
Hmm. Yeah. What came through is like the energy that you're allowing to come in your space, because there is so many contradicting things and so much information out there. So it is really what you allow to come
Yes.
in, and just so, so good and so important. You had mentioned when we were talking about mindset that you have some tools in your
Mhm.
program. What's like your top one tool that you love to have people practice?
Oh my God, that's such a good question. I have so many. I'm like, ooh, which one do I want to
You
pick?
can give more than one if you want. I just didn't want you to give all your tricks away.
Yeah, no, no, no. I think the one I really like to talk about the most, because I think that it's the most, it's one that we tend to be the most aware of, is our, and it connects with a lot of what we've been talking about today, is our tendency to self-sabotage. And what I mean by that is when you believe the negative thoughts in your mind and you accept them as true, your ability to make your dream come true is automatically diminished because the actions you're willing to take are constrained. And so, what I mean by that is if you think to yourself, I'm running out of time, I'm running out of time, I'm running out of time, then it's going to be a lot harder to stop, gain clarity, get a real connected sense of what you need. And instead, you're going to find yourself in what I call conception chaos. And conception chaos, I argue, is an actual state of mind where women who are struggling to conceive, we know the research shows, have elevated stress levels. There's one study, you're probably familiar with it, that showed women who are diagnosed with my least favorite word, infertility, because that word is so misleading and I can't stand it. But women who are given that label have stress levels that are comparable to people who are diagnosed with HIV, cancer, and heart disease. So
Mhm.
this kind of diagnosis evokes a stress response that's comparable to a life-threatening disease. And stress is also harmful for fertility because it throws off the reproductive hormonal system by shifting the body's focus into this like fight or flight response. So I'm not going to get all into that, but we'll just take that as point value, right? So what can you do about it? We approach it from the mind body approach. So in the mind, we're really interested in starting to look at, okay, what are these thoughts? Are they true with a capital T? Like true. I had a client yesterday, I was coaching with her, a BFP member, and she has this belief that she's created. It's never going to happen for me. It's never going to happen for me. And she has a whole stack of reasons as to why. Yet she's in the BFP. She wants to have a baby. There's a feeling within her that she knows it's possible, but her mind keeps getting in the way. And so we're really trying to say, okay, is this true with a capital T? Do you know for a fact this is never going to happen? No, right? We don't know for a fact it's never going to happen. Then how can we become more aware of those thoughts? Not even trying to change them yet, but just recognizing them when they come into your brain and noticing that they're trying to present themselves as true, but they're not necessarily true. So we work on that, and I call that like the saboteur or the inner critic. And we have a host of different exercises and things that we walk through because all of those thoughts are really based in beliefs and thought patterns that were established within us as kids.
Hmm.
And so we're really trying to break that stuff down and break free of it so that we can rewire the way that you think and allow it to serve you rather than get in your way.
Hmm.
And then I will throw in one more tool just because I have to. I think that the really practicing some form of mindful breath really is the other, like kind of attacking it from the other angle. It's not just intellectual, but also, you were saying, embodied. I think that when we, I know, I mean, the research shows women who do mind body programs have been shown to, again, increase their odds of conceiving by 50%. And that's out of Harvard's School of Mind Body Research. That's Alice Domar who led that study. And there is power in using mindful breath, learning different tools, because it's soothing that nervous system response. It's allowing your body to return to a neutral state. It's providing space for the reproductive system to get engaged again and balanced again. And it's supporting you in questioning those thoughts and beliefs because it gives you more clarity in your brain. Literally, when you're in fight or flight, your prefrontal cortex shrinks. So your executive decision making skills are compromised. When you get out of that state of stress overdrive, then you actually literally think more clearly. And that's the place you want to be making these really important decisions from, not the place of what the heck, I just have to make this happen, but from a place of this is going to happen. What's the next step I need to take? I'm going to get there.
Amazing. You articulated that so beautifully. So I'm so glad I asked that question. Thank you so much. Yeah, so much to just take from that. I think I always like to say increasing awareness allows space for change because if you don't have the awareness, then you don't even realize that it's available to you to change.
Right. Exactly. Because the thoughts we think over and over, and I don't know the exact number, but I think they say something like 95% or 85%, a very high percent of the thoughts you have on a daily basis are just recycled from the day before. And we just keep thinking the same old stuff over and over again. And we don't actually realize it's just made up. Like it's not true with a capital T.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stories our mind
Mhm.
has created. Yeah. 100%. So I know you have a freebie
I
for the
do.
listeners, an e-booklet, 3 surprising habits that can block your baby. So please
Mhm.
tell us a little bit about that.
Okay. Actually, that's perfect segue because it really connects so much to everything we were talking about today. So, in that e-booklet, I dive further into these 3 surprising habits that they're surprising because we don't think of them, right? We don't realize that we're doing it, but it really comes down to mental blocks that we put in our own way on our paths to our baby, which, when removed, can accelerate our odds of success.
Mm,
So there are 3 different examples, and I'll let you check out the e-booklet to find out what they are
yeah.
of where we do this, and also provide some exercises on how to start shifting it.
Beautiful. I'm just getting so many visual downloads with this conversation from you, but I'm just like, it's just paving the path, right? Paving the way for you.
Yes.
So if this conversation has your wheels turning, go download that ebooklet. I'm sure you are going to get something out of it and you can begin shifting things for yourself. So, Kathryn also has a podcast, the Badass Fertility Podcast. I was a recent guest. I'm going to be putting my show link in the notes as well. So tell the listeners about your podcast and then also where they can find you, learn from you, and connect with you.
Thank you. Yeah. So the Badass Fertility Podcast is a weekly show where I really offer what I call high vibe inspiration, down to earth information, and authentic support. So we tackle a lot of the things that we talked about in today's episode, examples like how to deal with baby showers, how to identify mental blocks between you and your baby, all kinds of things that are really mindset tools and related to making you feel seen and providing support that will help you navigate this moment in time that can be so hard to handle.
Amazing. Thank you. Yeah, check it out. Her podcast is Chef's Kiss, really talks about so many
Thank
things
you.
that I align with and am passionate about as well. And it really is the emotional side of fertility is just wanting to come through so much. It's just
Yeah.
so much more than the physical
Yeah.
limitations that we have in Western medicine, even functional medicine, to be honest. So explore her podcast and get that extra layer of support. And where can they find you and connect with you?
Oh, thank you. The best place to come find me is on Instagram, and my handle is Badass Fertility. And if you want to learn more about my programs or working with me, you can always check out my website, badassfertility.com.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Kathryn. It was such
Thank
a
you.
fun conversation and just a reminder, right, that we don't have to be victims, I think,
Mm,
on our fertility
hmm.
journey. We can decide
Yes.
to really rise above and step into our power and choose to shift our mindset and the narrative.
Absolutely. And as the title of your podcast, Rising into Motherhood, that so appropriately nails it on the head. Hits the nail on the head. So thank you. It's really been an honor to be here. I could talk about this all day, and I just really appreciate having this conversation. So thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for tuning in to the Rising into Mindful Motherhood podcast. If this episode resonated with you or gave you an aha moment, stop what you're doing right now and write a review. This simple act of kindness helps me get this podcast out to connect with as many women as I possibly can. I also have a special offer. If you send me a screenshot of your review, I will take $250 off one of my premium coaching containers. Let me know what resonated with you the most and why. So connect with me in my free Facebook community or tag me on Instagram. You'll find both listed below. Thanks again from the bottom of my heart for tuning in to this episode, and I'll see you next time.